it's the big tournament. You go into round one and you pull that opening hand and you have high cost units and event cards. Not to worry, you take that mulligan, you pull that hand again, and you still don't have a turn one play. Fortunately, you've been watching TCG Psychology and you have the mental skills to go into this game with an open mindset and you come back and win. Let's take a look at those skills today. Welcome back to TCG Psychology, the channel where we turn psychological skills into competitive advantages. Now, it's not out of the ordinary to have those games where we don't have a turn one play. We've all been there, I've experienced it as well, and it can really unsettle your game plan. Now, the reality of TCGs is there's a lot of variance that happens. We're down to a lot of RNG when it comes to what we're going to draw, what our opponent's going to draw, and how that game's going to go. So it's really important that even though these situations can be disheartening, we don't lose hope and we're able to still focus on what we need to do to be able to come back and win that round. It's not impossible, I'm sure you've all been there as well. You don't have that turn one play, but you somehow manage to get yourself back into that game and take the victory anyway. Well, there's certain things that we can do from a mental perspective to ensure that we're in the right mindset to enable us to do that. So when it comes to seeing that opening hands, there are certain things that are going to impact us psychologically. First of all, probably the biggest impact is going to be that expectation versus reality. You know, when we're going into round one of games, we're often expecting to have certain cards in our opening hand and we're thinking about all those combos that we're going to pull off going forward. The reality is we're not always going to see the cards that we need, and there are going to be those times when we don't have any usable cards in our initial hand as well. This is going to be a drastic difference between, you know, that expectation of having all of those perfect cards into the reality, I have nothing usable right now. And that's going to have quite a big impact on how you're seeing that situation psychologically. We already know this is going to be a really big uphill battle to get back into the game, especially if we're behind on round one. But it's not impossible, and that's really the key thing to remember. We need to be able to adapt in these situations and look at our optimal lines of play based on what we have rather than what we don't have. So we need to keep that focus on our hand and what we can do rather than what we can't do, which is what we can't control. We can't control what cards we're going to have in our opening hand. So when it comes to being able to approach that poor opening hand with a good mindset, we need to be able to focus on that long-term game plan. First of all, we need to identify what are we going to do over the first few turns in order to play catch up per se. What can I do in these initial stages of the game to most effectively use the cards that I do have? So you need to be able to go into that with an open mindset to be able to play through all of those decisions and, you know, the potential outcomes of playing certain lines of play based on what cards you do have. It's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be easy, but it's what you need to do in high level competitions to showcase your skill and be able to come back effectively in those moments. Next, you need to start calculating probabilities. What are the probabilities of me drawing cards that are going to actually support this hand? You know, do I have a potentially good turn two play that if I draw a certain card, that's going to have a huge impact on me being able to swing this game around? At the same time, what are the probabilities that my opponent's going to have some optimal lines of play as well that they're playing from? These are the types of thought processes that you need to be going through as a skilled player, even after starting with a poor opening hand. Finally, you need to accept that a certain percentage of times you are going to lose games based on luck rather than skill. If you want to go ahead and take a look at my luck versus skill video that I've published previously, please do go back and find that. But there's a certain percentage of the time that we're going to lose games just because of that RNG factor that comes along with TCGs. We might play everything optimally with the skills that we have, but we're still going to end up losing that game just because of the chances of us drawing certain cards and the chances of our opponents drawing certain cards. So the best players already go in with the mindset that, you know, I'm going to win X amount of games based on my skill, and there's a chance that I'm going to lose X amount of games based on the RNG that comes along with TCGs. So being able to accept that there's some games, you know, especially those ones where we draw that opening hand that isn't usable, that might just be down to that percentage of games that we're going to lose just based off of the chance that comes along with competing in TCGs. So being able to accept that is a really key part, and you need to be able to accept that, because if you can't move on, and we've talked about this on the channel previously as well, you're going to be ruminating in that game, and it's going to impact your performance going forward into the tournament as well. So be able to refresh yourself and focus on what you can do and what you can control, rather than what you can't do and what you can't control. Now, what we can do in these situations is to remember the acronym A.D.A.P.T, which will help us stay mentally in the game even with a poor opening hand. Now, A.D.A.P.T stands for acceptance, detach, analyze, perform, and trust. And what we're going to do in each of these stages of the acronym is make sure that we're mentally ready to continue this game even with that poor opening hand. So first of all, with acceptance, we need to just accept that, yes, this does happen. I've been screwed over from my deck and RNG in this game. You want to be able to just allow that process to happen and accept it. So you can say that verbally to yourself, you know, this is poor RNG, this has happened to me in this moment. But next, we want to detach our emotions from that situation. You know, at the end of the day, it's a piece of cardboard in front of us. We need to detach the negative emotions that we might be feeling in that situation and be able to bring ourselves back to a neutral state. So whether you use breathing skills in this situation that we've talked about previously, or something else to handle those emotions, we want to come back to that neutral performance zone. After we've detached ourselves from that situation, we now need to go into that analysis. So as I mentioned previously in this video, we're going to go through that problem solving. What cards do I currently have? How can I most effectively use them? And what are my optimal plays through the next few turns? Next, we get into that performance mindset. And this is, again, what we've touched on previously on this channel. We're going to commit to our play lines. We're going to go in there without an unwavering thought to what could potentially go wrong. We're going to play with and execute with conviction. We're going to follow that play line and we're going to see it through. Again, we might need to adapt moving forward as things play out and we draw different cards, but we need to make sure that we're executing it with confidence. Remember, we want to execute it with conviction to make sure that we're going through that process. Finally, we want to trust ourselves and our deck building skills. We want to be able to trust that we've set up our deck with the correct probabilities, that we're going to draw certain cards that are going to give us outs in these situations. So trust in your deck building skills, trust in yourself that you have the outs that you need moving forward over the next few rounds. As you go through practicing this A.D.A.P.T acronym, feel free to make changes to it as you see fit. You are the expert in your performance and you know what you need to reset yourself to focus on the performance moving forward. So take this as a framework to start practicing in your weekly plays, and then once you feel comfortable with it, adapt it as you see fit to ensure that it works for you. It's really important to remember that at the end of the day, there is a large portion that comes down to that percentage of chance. You know, I've had those tournaments where I've gone in and had a poor opening hand, and by just the luck of the draw, I managed to come back in that game and end up winning it. And there's been those times as well where it's just been a poor starting hand and it just does not get better from there, and you just draw the cards in the wrong order. It happens, we need to accept that, and we need to be able to move on quickly, because remember, the long-term game plan over a tournament is to be able to make a top cut, maybe day 2, etc. And that's going to be of your performance over the course of the day rather than one individual game. So if you're able to maintain that focus on what you need to do to be able to perform over the full course of the day, and you have those skills to make it to the top cut, having that poor opening hand in one round isn't going to be the end of the world unless you're unable to bounce back from it from a psychological perspective. Thank you so much for watching this video again today. I hope you enjoyed learning about the A.D.A.P.T acronym, and please do let me know down below in the comment section how you found practicing it in your weekly plays. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you're notified when I upload new videos. And please make sure to share this video with any friends that you know who could use a hand in being able to adapt to a poor opening start. And as always, make sure to go and win the mind game meta.